Defensive backs and tight ends dominated day 2 of combine drills with some historic runs and plenty of guys who put themselves on the public radar.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. I am David Harrison, your guy on the ground, credentialed member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9, also writing for Commanders on SI, and I'm here with you 5 days a week. Coming up on today's episode, we recap what went down with the defensive backs and the tight ends when they took the field inside Lucas Oil Stadium, including a record-setting run by tight end Kenyon Sadiq and why Mansoor Delane has locked himself in as the top cornerback in this year's class. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to start off with the cornerbacks and the safeties, the defensive backs. Defense backfield, elite recovery speed was a theme of the day when they took the field there inside Lucas Oil Stadium. Some physical prototypes that fit the modern NFL defense and philosophy. And I think the best fit when you look at these prospects for the Washington Commanders, and we're going regardless of rounds and all that kind of stuff, safety out of Ohio State, Caleb Downs. When you look at Washington, how they finished near the bottom of the league in yards per pass attempt, a culture fit, I think, is very easy to kind of just sniff out without even sitting in the interview room. You can just kind of tell that Caleb Downs is a kind of guy that appears to fit the culture. High IQ safety is what he was known as during his time with Ohio State, could play that Buffalo nickel role, which is something that the Washington Commanders historically have liked to do. Durante Jones has used similar types of players as well and could really help stabilize the secondary. We expect Quan Martin to get some looks into maybe some different positions. Will Harris is a veteran who can play back there, really any safety position. And then, of course, Mikey Sanders still with his slot role as well. I think Caleb Downs would be a great fit. But then when we look at historic Washington comps, we wanted to add this little wrinkle into these episodes. Lorenzo Styles Jr., DB out of Ohio State. I think Bobby Mitchell is kind of an interesting comp here, not because they played the same position, because they didn't, but because Bobby Mitchell was able to come to Washington, transition to a different position, and really have a legendary kind of run doing so. Lorenzo Styles Jr., also a transitioning player, was a wide receiver, transitioned over to DB, and has made really good for it, has done really well. In some areas, came into NFL Scouting Combine week as maybe a UDFA late, like 7th round, maybe late 6th round type of dude. I think he may have positioned himself much earlier than that after his workout. And once people go back and look at the tape and see where the workout marries with the film. But let's get to the top prospects and standouts from this group here. Mansoor Delane, again, came in out of LSU, the top cornerback in this year's class, only solidified himself as that guy. Looks like a premier workhorse coming out of the combine. Elite footwork in the W drill. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a little bit. Very smooth in his transitions. Right now, PFF has him as like the number 11 player on their big board mid-round 1. But he's going to be the first cornerback off the board. Maybe not the first DB, but I think he's going to be the first cornerback off the board. Most polished defensive back in attendance. Again, great footwork and recovery speed on display. Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee also did his thing. Ball hawking instincts were on display during the ball tracking drills. Another mid-first round prospect. PFF has him on their big board right behind Delane at number 12. But again, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Delane and then McCoy from the cornerback position. Again, elite ball skills. Avieon Terrell out of Clemson, high-end lateral agility on display in Indianapolis. Very compact and powerful back pedal. If you're able to see those drills, he's the 18th ranked player on the PFF big board. So another mid-first round type of guy, pro-ready type of corner. Caleb Downs, of course, comes out as a winner. He's one of the most complete players in this year's draft, if not the most complete players in this draft. A top 5 prospect, PFF's number 3 overall rating or player. And then Lorenzo Styles Jr. again comes into the combine week 232 on the PFF big board. That's 7th round range, potential UDFA range, depending on needs there at the end of the draft. I think he's firmly into that day 3 conversation. I think round 6 is probably where you might see him come off if his pro day and if people can go back and attach the workouts to the tape. I think you're definitely looking at a 6th round reach for him potentially. Again, former wide receiver, transition to DB. He's got natural ball skills, elite athletes ability, 6'1", 195 pounds. pass catching, again, tracking, all on display. Most important drill, if you watch the combine drills, most important drill for this position group, just in general, called the W drill. We just kind of talked about it just a little bit. Really what it does is test the DBs, and it's basically what it sounds like. They go out there and they basically draw a W on the field, waiting for their cues, things like that. Test their back pedal, test their back foot plants, test their ability to drive down on the ball, all the fundamental moves needed to mirror a receiver, whoever you're guarding in coverage. And I think the best player on the field in Indianapolis, Mansoor Delane, his transitions were the most fluid of the session. Again, just kind of locking himself in as that number one guy. And, you know, there's conversations of these guys being, you know, really, really close in comparison. Again, you got a cornerback at number 11 on the big board. You also got a cornerback at number 12. I think Delane definitely kind of gave himself a little bit of a tiebreaker there. One of the quotes that stood out from the coverage, Daniel Jeremiah on the Styles brothers. So Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. We talked about him as a winner in our last episode. Lorenzo Styles Jr. doing his thing on the very next day. Daniel Jeremiah of the Styles brothers, quote, "You have Sonny Styles, who is a top 5 pick, and then his brother Lorenzo, who switched from offense. The athletic genes in the family are just off the charts. Lorenzo gives you that chest piece flexibility in the nickel." And quote, Rich Eisen, who did a great job. I got to give a round of applause to Rich Eisen, who is a Michigan man, for giving a lot of praise to Ohio State and a lot of Ohio State players over the course of the weekend. Some honorable mentions here. Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee. He is a riser up the board. I think showed great twitch and a lot of the change of direction drills. And then we've got Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon, a high IQ football player from his time with the Ducks, showed off some good things in some drills, but of course ran that 4.36 40 as well. And then Emmanuel McNeil Warren, safety out of Toledo, whatever, a small school standout type of guy, moved well in the drills as well, certainly continuing to increase or improve or secure his stock as a day 2. I've seen some late day 1 projections for him as an NFL safety. So that was the DBs group. Now we move on to the tight ends group, including a historic run by Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, from early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. There is always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your thought process you can do. You can mix the spreads, totals, player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Look around the odds, see what you like, see how you can stack them, and then go for whatever you're feeling like you can go for during all of the madness that's about to happen. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the most people and the people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the time that we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates to check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching, less stress, less time, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders also brought to you in part by Game Time. We live in a world where you can stream anything. You can order food in minutes. You can carry supercomputers in your pockets, but somehow buying tickets to games and events just stays complicated. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There's got to be a better way, and that's why I use the Game Time app. It gives you the advantage and makes getting tickets simple, whether it's an NFL game, concert, comedy, whatever you're into. Went to the New England area for joint practices last year. was able to get tickets for myself, my wife, and my son, went to Fenway for the first time in any of our lives, saw a Red Sox game, was really easy to do. You got the view from your seat, you get all of the fees and everything right up front, so there's no surprises at checkout. Really does make it very, very easy. 2 taps and you've got great seats locked in, fast, easy, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Continuing with today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listener, your first view today and every day. To the everydayers, thank you for coming through for yet another episode. The tight end group at the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine, described by Daniel Jeremiah as, quote, a really, really good group. A lot of value to be found as well, end quote. The session was headlined, obviously, by speed. Several players coming through with some really good times. None better than Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of the Oregon Ducks program, who has to be the best fit for the Washington Commanders in this year's group. We expect David Blau's offense to thrive through a tight end that can make catches on the seam. Sadiq's 4.37 speed, historic mark for tight ends at the NFL Scouting Combine, makes him the perfect vertical threat to pair with Jaden Daniels' deep ball. And yes, a lot of these perfect fits are first-round guys, and unfortunately, you only got one first-round pick if you're the Washington Commanders. Best Commanders comp? I think Eli Stowers, tight end out of Vanderbilt, kind of looks like Logan Thomas, converted quarterback, explosive athletic traits, and understanding of spacing from that quarterback perspective certainly gives him a leg up in the receiving department as a tight end. Let's go through the top prospects from the workouts over the weekend. Of course, Kenyon Sadiq, again, the main star of the group, 4.37 40, fastest of the day, fast of his position, historic run, all that kind of stuff. Daniel Jeremiah said, quote, does a lot of the same things, end quote, as Vernon Davis, but said that he's a better blocker than Vernon Davis. And obviously, Washington fans, if you've been a Washington fan for a while, you're familiar with Vernon Davis from his time with the franchise. Was a first-round pick back in his day of the San Francisco 49ers. Currently, Kenyon Sadiq is number 28 on the PFF big board. I have a feeling that's going to change just a little bit coming out of the NFL Scouting Combine. Freaky, just athletic workout really puts him in elite company as far as tight ends are concerned. Eli Stowers, we just talked about him out of Vanderbilt, former quarterback who showed explosive athletic traits, ran a sub-4.4 40-yard dash, and was really just kind of been impressive as another player who's transitioned from one position to another. And Adam Peters seems to like himself a guy who played one position and then converted to another. Would not be the first tight end. Colson Yankoff would be the first, at least in this iteration of Commanders rosters, to be the converted quarterback turned tight end. Eli Stowers would be another one if he ends up with the Washington Commanders. Doesn't seem likely, though. He is PFF's number 48 overall player, round 2 projection. Don't think the Commanders, if they trade into round 2, I guess I can't say it wouldn't be for a tight end, but it would be a little bit weird, depending on what they do in the offseason. Justin Jolly, NC State, demonstrated really good hands, fluid movement throughout the gauntlet drills, and all those things. You really like the way that he moved. He is a third-round projection, number 92 on the PFF big board. Again, just highly consistent in his drills and his workout, which you'll love to see. Bauer Sharp out of LSU was a demonstrator for several drills, so that kind of showcases his technical ability and was a very technical type of guy. He is a round 7 projection, undrafted free agent projection, number 348 on the PFF big board. But again, his technical skill and ability and all that stuff, wouldn't hate it to see him as a late round pick or a UDFA if the Washington Commanders decide to go out there. The most important drill, I think, in today's NFL for the tight end is that 40-yard dash that we just talked about. Again, the ability to get up the seam, get into the open space, create mismatches for your quarterback, do all these things, I think is incredibly important. And that vertical speed is going to be important. And look, as we just talked about, the defensive backs groups just incredibly fast. So if you're going to be a tight end and you're going to be able to threaten those DBs, you're going to have wheels of your own along with the size. Obviously, the best performance goes to Kenyon Sadiq. There was a quote during the broadcast coverage: Sadiq is supposed to put on a show and watch him run. Someone with his hands has got to somehow get matched up, and we've gotten even faster in the NFL at the position. Daniel Jeremiah overall on the tight end group, quote, it's a really, really good group and a lot of value to be found. There's a lot of starters to be had deep in this draft, end quote. An honorable mention here from the workouts: Max Clare, tight end out of Ohio State, reliable, solid during his time in college. I think he kind of showed that ability to be reliable, be solid at the NFL Scouting Combine as well, kind of locking him in to that day 2 ballpark. That's going to do it for this wrap up and recap of what the DBs and the tight ends did on the Lucas Oil Stadium surface when they got their opportunity to run their drills of the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. On the next episode of Locked On Commanders, we're going to go over the quarterbacks, the receivers, and the running backs. Even more history made. So make sure you are subscribed and following along with Locked On Commanders so you get all the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode of Locked On Commanders, the Everydayer Club is literally built for you. And with free agency on the horizon, we're going to give you 1 month free of the Everydayer Club with code FREEAGENCY. That's no spaces, all one word, free agency, now through March 15th. You sign up for the membership level, you sign up for the all access level, get ad free, get bonus episodes, get bonus content, all kinds of stuff, newsletters, things like that, as well as access to the Discord. Again, that code free agency, all one word, lockedoncommanders.supercast.com to check that out today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast twice per day on YouTube or on audio. And to the Everydayers, I see you, I appreciate you, and I thank you every day, and especially for coming through today. To everybody out there, until next time, please stay safe, be kind, and we will talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.